Our next speaker is Lasche Schumann, and he will discuss a system that will help you write an analysis for like any programming language. So it's language abstract. Well, it's very general, but I'll let him explain the details. There will be plenty of time for questions afterwards, so yeah, you can prepare those in the meantime.
Thank you. So I want to talk to you about the Koala project. Koala stands for Code Analysis Application, and yes, we have coala-bear at our stand. Koala is a modular static code analyzer. So Koala is like a program, a framework, and you can plug in any kind of analysis routine. So you can actually use it on any text, but it provides user interaction for you. So if you're, for example, doing research on static code analysis, it makes it very easy for you to do that. You just write your logic and you get the rest for free. You don't repeat what all those frameworks are doing, like Pylin. They all have their own user interaction. So I like this graphic. So you have like multiple tools and you have multiple use cases. You may want some JSON export for further processing the data, or I like this really much, reviewing pull requests on GitHub. Something for continuous integration, command line interface, editor plugins, stuff like that. And traditionally, you would need to connect all of those. And solely drawing that graphic took a lot of time, not even speaking of implementing all that. So what you can do is place one unified API point in between of them, and that reduces the work significantly. Because at the upper side, you just write the logic. You don't care about anything else. The slides are also uploaded, just noticing. Yes, and now I will already start with the demo, because I think this is the coolest. So, for example, this is Atom. We have a plugin for Atom. And if you write code in it, you could just add an unused import and stuff like that. And Koala would now automatically fix it when I save it. That is because I configured it that way, so don't be scared. It doesn't do that by default. We also have this command line interface that shows you the results in this manner, gives you some context. So I could browse through them, open it in an editor, I don't know, and then change it again, save it, and it will pick that up. So Koala will here also take care of calculating offsets. So if I change that file manually, and I got a result that has an automatic fix appended, then Koala will like calculate the offsets so those fixes don't conflict with each other and all that stuff like that, which is solely based on text. You don't need to rewrite that for every language again, right? Yeah, there's also the JSON output is usually interesting for many people. I guess it takes some time because it checks the whole project. Yeah, so I hope this gave a very, very short impression. And I actually would really like to spend most of the time with questions, because it usually depends on the people and on how I presented what remains to be answered. Did that fully confuse everyone? Yes. Okay, that is sad. So did you get what Koala is and what our intention is? Who did get that? Okay, and then I'll elaborate on that. So we want to reduce redundancy in static code analysis. You have Pylint and you have CSSLint, just for example, and those all have a command line application. They may have even editor plugins and stuff like that. And this is not needed that every new application rewrites this again. So we want Koala to reduce the redundancy here by providing you with the ability to just write your logic. And that looks like this. You essentially just define a function that takes a few parameters, you give it a documentation comment, and Koala will take care of that you get all settings you need. We'll ask the user if needed, and we'll show him your documentation comment as help text even. And you just, like this does simple indentation, and it's like 57 lines of code, and that is it. It essentially just generates a new re-indented file, and then creates a diff from that, and for each hunk in that diff, it yields a result with some severity in description, and appends a diff to it. Right? So this is how you write analysis for Koala. You can also integrate other tools in it. For example, here that is CSSlet. You just specify the binary, give it a regex, and then you can use any other tool right from within Koala. Because the goal is to reduce redundancy and not create some. So that it can be used for any kind of analysis on text. So you can use syntax fixing. I did my bachelor thesis about code clone detection using Koala in C. That was actually pretty awesome, I think. You could even use runtime analytics if you wanted, because you can do anything in those routines, and you're not restricted. So it's very, very generic, but it still saves you a lot of work.
Are there any more questions? Just a second, I'll bring the mic.
So I was just wondering, does Koala also, deal with sort of building an abstract syntax tree and could give that as an input, or is that something that you would, as an implementer, have to deal with yourself?
So an abstract syntax tree is inherently not language independent. So Koala itself does not generate one or so. However, Koala does something language independent to support you in doing that. And what you can do with Koala is you can write one routine that generates the abstract syntax tree, and you could write several others that consume it. And you just declare the abstract syntax tree as a dependency, and then it will be all generated as needed for you and passed around as needed and parallelized. So Koala speeds up the performance and stuff like that. You get that for free. But you still need to generate the abstract syntax tree on your own. But you can use Clang for it if you want. We will work in the future on trying to come up with something that is a bit more language independent, some AST that works for several languages, at least it is some kind of extensible, and I will try to maybe do my master thesis about that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Further questions? Please do ask. Yes.
Just a second.
Okay, the question was, what is the status of the web integration? Is there any UI for a website, like Sonar, I guess, right? So currently we don't generate any website of any kind. What we work on is this automatic pull request generation. I can show you that, because I really like that. So when I submit a pull request, say in C code, then Koala will put a comment on the commit if I do something wrong, and even tells me how to fix it. So in the future we want you to be able to respond like, fix it, and then Koala will edit your pull request or create a new one. And I think this is really the best way, because it is actually working like somebody who actually reviews your code. And it's not some website that you need to go to or that sets you stupid, annoying weekly reports or stuff. It just does incremental code reviews. So we could do such a website if there is demand for that. If you think that would be really cool, then you can file a bug. It should be actually pretty easy. I mean, you saw we have JSON output and stuff like that. So, I mean, a really nice story I always love to tell is I had a student who wrote a plugin, the plugin for Atom actually, in 15 minutes, and that included learning CoffeeLint. Anything further? Don't be shy.
Okay, just a second.
Have you run into any kind of problems that you have static code analysis, things that you would like to do, but you cannot support language independently? Like, for example, a language has a feature that does not really map onto other language features, and Koala cannot really support it for that language. I'm trying to think of a scenario, but it doesn't come up, but maybe you have.
Okay, so Koala supports you in combining language-independent functionality with language-dependent functionality, right? So you could actually write one routine that checks spacing, and you can use that for any language because it's only spacing. And then you can write something that is language-dependent and only use that on that language combined with the generic stuff. So that way you can do language-dependent analysis, but you still can avoid rewriting generic stuff. Did that answer the question?
Well, more or less. Maybe there is like an editor feature. The way I talked about it was there's an editor feature, for example, that is now currently in an IDE, and you would like to support it, but Koala cannot really integrate that kind of functionality, or is there that kind of limitation? But I think you more or less answered it. So it's
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Maybe a very simple question. You mentioned that people write these nice plugins. Is there some sort of centralized repository where people can share them, or?
So currently we don't have any centralized repository. We currently actually all analysis routines live in the Koala main repository, which we want to fix soon. As we have just recently began actually writing them, but it's really, really fast. So we already have plenty of them and plenty of languages supported. So what we plan to do is just, since it is Python, do pip packages, and then you can just install those pip packages, and then you get those analysis functionalities. So we don't have to deal with anything custom. You just use pip because they do a good job, and they can do that better than we can.
Yeah, that's great. Any other questions?
So could you maybe comment on how, well, let's say production ready that in terms of, for example, this kind of thing I could use to enforce our custom code style for C++ projects, and obviously for that you need some integration with Ceiling, and you mentioned that you have some, but is it, how far is this project in terms of like being used on large code bases and so forth?
So before now, we didn't like announce Koala very publicly because it was not really ready. And now we're actually coming to FOSDEM for the first time and announcing it like, we're here and now you can use it. It is still not the 1.0, so there might be actually an API change to simplify the development, but it will be a very, very simple one. Behind the scenes, we use tools like Clang. We use existing tools that are production ready. So we use it anyway. We use it in our continuous integration. I use it also for the Python Babel project, some of you might know. So we have quite some testing, and I think it's growing more and more stable. So you could just give it a try, and if you encounter lots of bugs, then please file them and don't use it. It's very sad, but we didn't get a lot of bug reports that are really nasty, at least. I can comment on that pull request thing. So that is actually all this free software. On that pull request thing, we want to try to build a business around that with some service that is not production ready. That's a prototype, but I hope it will be soon. It will still be free software and free for open source. You can still get the source code, but support and stuff like that. You know how that works. Did that answer it? Thank you.
Okay. Are there any more questions?
It's two questions, but I ask one first. How much effort is required to applications that are multi-language, that includes in the same source in different languages? How difficult it is to build that support in Koala? And the second, I give you the second, about annotations, Java annotations.
Java annotations.
Java annotations. in the code, how difficult it is to deal with Java annotations with Koala.
So the second question first. That depends on what kind of analysis routine you use. So you could write an analysis routine that understands that. If you have a tool that understands that, you can very easily integrate it into Koala, and then we could do that too. What was the other question? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, Koala is basically made for that. So you have one configuration file. I can show that. It is an ini-like structure, and you essentially those are sections that are executed sequentially. And bears within one section will be parallelized by Koala. So if you have something that actually might result in conflicting diffs, you can just put them in different sections and they will not conflict. You see that you can actually use multiple sections for multiple languages. So you can say, make a Makefile section that uses tabs, and make a Python section that uses spaces, and use different kinds of analysis routines for it. So Koala is made for that. All the tools obey to the same settings, so you don't have to look up for every tool what setting it uses, right? Because our wrappers already wrap it accordingly. So Koala is made for making that simple for you. Answer it? Thank you.
We have time for a few more questions.
Basically spoke about continuous integration. And what exactly was the problem solving? I mean, right now, for example, in our build job, we use like 6, 7 different tools to, I know, analyze code and to, like do linting and check for obvious mass detectors and all the other stuff. So does this take some of this pain away from you if you use Koala or not? I mean, that's...
So essentially with Koala, you don't have to configure 6 or 7 tools anymore, but you only configure Koala. And you use the use_tabs setting, and all those tools will pick that up if they are wrapped properly. And if they are not, you fall back, but they should be. Yeah, so Koala takes this burden from you to manage all those tools. You just use one config file, you use one command, and all will be done for you.
Okay, thanks. Maybe one more small question, if anyone has one. I guess all questions were asked. Thank you very much. Let's thank the speaker again.
Thanks for your attention and for your questions. We have a stand. Drop by if you have any more. We're happy to give you a beer or a Koala Cola.